Yellowstone Volcano has a huge chunk at the park, breathing in and out due to trapped magma. It's the area the size of Chicago, according to London Daily Mail WND. The area the size of Chicago in Yellowstone National Park has been inflating and deflating by several inches over the past 10 years. The Norris Geyser Basin, the oldest, hottest, and most dynamic thermal area in the park. That's where we have the Steamboat Geyser that has been going off regularly almost every week since March of 2018. And we see it here. It's one of the biggest, it is the biggest geyser in the world. It can go up to 300 feet in height. We know that Yellowstone has 60% of the world's geysers, and it has over 10,000 hydrothermal areas. It's the second largest supervolcano in the world. Now, the Norris Geyser Basin, the most dynamic thermal area in the park, was observed to rise almost 6 inches every year, 5.9 inches every year from 2013 to 2015, which is a very unusual event that left researchers baffled. And now, using satellite radar and GPS data, experts determined the ground deformation was caused by magma intrusions trapped below the basin's surface. This is all according to Yellowstone Volcano Observatory. Experts determined an intrusion of magma under the surface is to blame. As we said, magma became trapped at the top and pushed the rocks up above it. The magma has since receded, putting the pulsating on pause for now. But the area, such as Chicago, inflating, deflating several inches every year over the past decade. Now, the first time the scientific community was able to track an entire episode of magma intrusion, which they say is common occurrence throughout Yellowstone. It sits on the northwest region of Wyoming, home to the Steamboat Geyser, and of course we know that Yellowstone has all these 60% of the world's geysers, steam vents, fumaroles, bubbling pools. At 3,472 square miles, the park is larger than the state of Rhode Island and Delaware together. And most of the land is in Wyoming. It also spills over to Montana and Idaho. And below is the supervolcano that scientists believe last erupted 640,000 years ago. That was a double eruption about 170 years apart. And the study shows there is still magma flowing beneath the surface. The uplift of Norris Geyser first began in 1996. It stopped between 2013 and 14 after a magnitude 4.9 earthquake struck the area. The ground started to sink back to its natural depth after that, but data shows that the rise began again in 2016, continuing 2 years after, as what researchers found, and it's now paused. So as we see, it's deflating, inflating, deflating, and inflating again, and now it's stopped. Dan Zurizen, one of the study authors who wrote the study, said modeling suggests that the 1996-2004 uplift was caused by intrusion of magma about 8.7 miles beneath Norris. And when magma intrudes the crust, it cools, it crystallizes, and it releases gases that had been dissolved in the melt. The gas escapes, lowers pressure in the magma, causing the surface to subside. Okay, that's like when you're pressing a balloon and the air comes out. It becomes smaller. But rising gases can become trapped under an impermeable layer of rock, and it causes a kind of rapid uplift, as we see at Norris, from late 2013 until the magnitude 4.9 earthquake in March of 2014. And he said it seems likely the quake created microfractures that allowed gases to escape upward again, resulting in subsidence that ended in 2015. The third uplift episode from 2016 to 18 suggests rising gases became trapped again, this time in a slightly shallower depth. And Jurison said, he noted that in the study, that this type of activity is, of course, common throughout the park, common for Yellowstone supervolcano, and does not set off any alarm bells that we're expecting some kind of an eruption. He explained that for the first time we've been able to track an entire episode of magma intrusion, degassing, and gas ascent to the near surface. And for those in the know like you, that is awesome. The findings also led researchers to clues about steamboat geysers' increased activity over the past 2 years. The study says frequent eruptions of steamboat geysers since March 2018 are likely a surface manifestation of this ongoing process. Hydrothermal explosions features are prominent at Norris Geyser Basin area, and the apparent shallow nature of the accumulation implies an increased risk of hydrothermal explosions. And as we know, Steamboat Geyser in Yellowstone erupted 47 times this year compared to 32 in 2018. And it has the accolade of being the world's largest geyser, but somewhat overshadowed by, of course, the fame of popular Old Faithful in the national park, which has its own live webcam and goes off depending on how much steam is let off every half an hour or 90 minutes or so. Now, Aaron White, Yellowstone National Park's hydrologist, said in the 1960s there was another period where there were more than 20 eruptions per year for Steamboat, and before that there were dormant periods of more than 50 years. Steamboat can shoot water more than 300 feet into the air. It broke a record in August when it erupted for the 33rd time, and just when experts thought it could not get any better, the geyser shot off 14 more times, bringing the total of eruptions this year to 47, according to U.S. Geological Survey. Before this year's record, the giant geyser was dormant, which is why scientists have been baffled by the recent numerous bursts of hot water and steam from Steamboat. Now, Steamboat, Yellowstone in general doesn't get very big earthquakes, so we see that it's rattling every day, but something has happened recently around Salt Lake with an unprecedented, surprising 5.7 magnitude out of nowhere at Salt Lake City, basically. And they're still going on, and the 5.7 was in an area, as we see here, right here, the mantle plume going underneath, from Baja, underneath Utah, Salt Lake City, runs right into Yellowstone. As you can see here, the left side shows you the mantle plume and running into Yellowstone, and the section on the right-hand side shows you the Baja mantle. The eastern part goes through Utah into Yellowstone, and it was big enough to shake the whole of Yellowstone. We saw that in one of my previous videos that you'll see. I'll do another one today because we're still having ongoing Salt Lake City quakes of the 3.4 that we had today, even smaller ones. This is a quake swarm, by the way. The 3.4 was reported felt by 821 people to USGS, which means thousands felt that as well. It's in an area right at Salt Lake City, which is a very soft area, soft sediment of liquefaction. And we've already had the Temple of Latter-day Saints having damage to the spire and the statue, and some buildings have been damaged with bricks falling off because of the fact that it's soft sediment there. So we do have times when Yellowstone does shake because of nearby earthquakes, and this one was not far off, and the intensity was big enough to shake Yellowstone as well. We saw that Yellowstone also had an uptick in earthquakes from the Ridgecrest quake of 7.1 that we had in July. And that happened again 20 years before, when Ridgecrest had a 7.1 magnitude earthquake. We saw an uptick in Yellowstone earthquakes as well, and in the Long Valley Caldera supervolcano in California as well, because they also, not only are they sensitive as supervolcanoes, but they share the same mantle plumes as Utah shares. I'll leave links below for you for this. Thank you. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.